Hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and in today's video we're going to make a tool holder for the vertical mill similar to this one. Let me zoom in a little bit and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is a tool holder I made some time back that holds a 1/4 inch high-speed steel bit. The way that works, of course, it mounts in a spindle in the mill, and as it turns it can either cut into a workpiece on the front side, or it could cut on one into a piece on the back side. This has worked fine, but I made a couple mistakes when I made this. First mistake was when I drilled the center hole in here to hold the tool, I didn't spot drill it first, and if you notice, it's off center just a little bit. It doesn't affect the usefulness of the tool. It just plays on my OCD every time I see it. And the other mistake I made was to make this piece, we'll need to take it in and out of the mill a couple times, at least one time in particular. And after we saw it in two, cut it in two in here, we'll need to put each of these two pieces back in the mill. And I didn't make provisions for lining that back up. So this time, what I'm going to do, I've got a little larger workpiece. What I want to do today is make one for a 3/8 piece of high-speed steel to hold this bit in for cutting as well. I've got upcoming projects that will use both of these, but I want to make one, like I say, to hold the 3/8 inch piece. And I'm definitely going to spot drill that center before I try to drill it out this time. But we're going to start this project off going over to the surface grinder, and I'm going to grind a flat on here. I think that will work a little easier than trying to run a mill down it, which would put the flat on as well, but the surface grinder will do an extremely good finish on it right to begin with. So let's turn over to the surface grinder now. Oh, by the way, this is 1 1/4 inch piece for the larger bit. Let's turn over to the surface grinder now and put us a flat on that. And again, I think you'll see where that'll come into play as this video progresses. To hold our workpiece on the surface grinder, I'm going to use some magnetic transfer blocks. Alright, I think we got a good grind on there. Again, all we're looking for is a flat, which we have a good uniform flat that I think you'll see where that comes into play in a moment when we turn to the mill. As I said earlier, we're going to have to take the workpiece in and out of the mill vise a couple times. So to help repeat that setup, of course, we just ground this edge on here, which that will help us orient it every time we take it out or put it back in. But also to hold it in the center, I'm going to use this V-block that I made especially for this mill vise. And a mistake I made in the other one was that I didn't secure this. And so when I put it back in, I still had my center on the Y-axis, but I had to play with it on the Z-axis. Now, some of you, if you've been following the channel long, you know that when I made these, I've got several different types of V-blocks that work with this vise. But I also drilled and tapped the inside of these socket head cap screws here. That's what these holes are for. So I can set this piece in. Of course, if I'm only doing one piece or one setup, I don't have to worry about securing that. But since we're going to take this in and out, I'll mount this V-block to the back vise jaw. Now with that in place, when we put it back in, we won't have to worry about the X-axis lining up, and this flat that we put on there is going to help us keep it oriented the same. Just be sure that flat is flat up against this. Now that should be repeatable, but what we've got to do now is find the center. And I can't just use my center finder on these two edges and these two because I got a flat here. So I think what we're going to do is use the coaxial indicator, and I can go off a couple of the sides at angles. So let me get that set up and I'll bring you right back. Okay, I've got the coaxial indicator mounted in in the drill chuck now, and what I'm going to do is simply try to get on the X-axis as close as possible. I've got the arm bumped up against the back here. So I'll zero that out. Excuse me if I have to get between you and the dial for a second. All right. Now I'm going to manually turn that 180 degrees. And adjust for about half of that. All right, that's pretty good there. Now what I want to do is pull around here, not getting on that flat. And we'll take about half that. And I'm just going to keep working this. Until my needle sets still everywhere except for that flat. Now other than this flat right here, watch the needle. It might be moving a half a thousandths. That was on that flat. But I'm going to call that centered. So I'm going to zero out the DRO on both axes, and for right now lock it down. We're lined up on center now. Got the center drill in. We're going to make us a little start there. Now this hole is going to be tapped for the top plate. Or the retaining plate to hold the tool in. Now on each side of this we're going to step over 404 thousandths, and what that is the diameter of the workpiece or the radius of the workpiece minus half of the width of the tool. Then I divided that difference there to come up with the center of the material left after we cut the slot for the tool. As in my case, worked out to 404 thousandths. Now we'll come 404 on the other side. Now we're going to put our tap drill in. I'm going to be using 1024s in this. So we'll put the tap drill in for 1024. Alright, I'm going to come back to the center. This one doesn't need to be drilled near as deep. And we'll come our 404 thousandths on the other side of center. Now while this is all held in place, we'll come back to the center and tap this center hole for the screw that will retain the tool. And I'm going to put the bottom tap in as well. Alright, that's got the shallow tap for the center one. And I'm going to go ahead and tap these two as well. Even though the holes in this top cap that's going to be cut off, those holes will be drilled with the clearance drill. But I'm going to do the tap the same way. It'll just be deeper in these two holes, and bring you back when we get ready to go over to the lathe to cut this off. Okay, I've got our workpiece in the lathe now, and we're going to part off what I'm calling the end cap. We're going to part it off about 200 thousandths. Alright, of course it went down in the drink as usual. Not too far, right there. Alright, it's kind of warm now. And I'm going to carry it over to the surface grinder. I'll do this off camera, but I'm just going to set this down on the surface grinder and get that little remnant ground off right there, and be sure this surface is flat. Okay, I've got our end cap piece cleaned up, and I've put it in the vise now, and we're going to drill out the two outside ones with a clearance drill for the number 10 screws, which is a 3/16. And while we're right here, we'll be sure those threads are clear all the way. Now we'll go back to the mill, reposition this using our flat surface so that we know we're on center, and then we'll mill out a slot for the 3/8 tool. Okay, using that flat surface that we surface ground back at the beginning of the video, and this V-block, we've got our workpiece positioned back in. Our DRO was on 0, so we know we're on 0 on the x-axis. I'm going to touch this 3/8 inch end mill off. Just touch it off. Now let's back up. Alright, we're going to keep doing this until we get down to our 375 thousandths. Okay, I realized that the end mill I was using, the tips of the flutes were rounded off. It was cutting good, but the workpiece wouldn't set down in the bottom. So I changed the end mill to a little sharper one, and now the tool sets down just maybe 5 or 6 thousandths. Then this will go over it and screw down to hold it into place, to hold the cap in place, and then this center screw will hold the tool in place. So the last thing we need to do, of course after deburring it, is go back to the lathe and we'll turn this down probably either to a 3/4 or 7/8. I don't remember which collet I use with these, but we'll go back to the lathe and turn that down. All right, I've got my carriage stop set down here at 2 inches. And again, we're going to turn this down to 3/4. I'm going to make a couple passes and then I'll bring you back when we get considerably closer. All right, before we change anything, I'm going to take the 3/4 collet. Be sure that slides over. That's a good fit. Might polish that just a little bit with some emery cloth. All right, I think we're ready to go back over to the workbench after this cools off a bit. Put it all together and see how it works. Okay, let's see if everything fits together now. We'll take our cap, match up our two ground surfaces. We can go ahead and get this center one started as well. All right, that should secure that in place. And again, this cap probably should never have to come off again. We've got just a little clearance in here. Like I say, I didn't mind this being a little bit deep. I just didn't want the tool sitting proud. All right, let's slide that up in our collet. And I didn't check it, but I want to be absolutely sure that this is sticking out further, and it's not. I've got to pull this out a little further. Don't the tool strike on the back side. Now this tool bit that I have now is not of any particular use on the mill. I just want to check, and we're going to see if it will cut a just a straight line through here. Alright, so I'm going to start at about 600 RPMs. And again, this cut means absolutely nothing other than just a test to see if this is going to work. And what I want to do is just touch off here. Alright, I'm going to zero out the Y, and we're going to come in about 30 thousandths. And slowly start feeding that in. All right, let's back up and just, as I said earlier, this particular tool bit is not ground for any particular purpose. Let's go in another 30 thousandths. Okay, there you have a tool holder for a square bit, for a square tool. As I said, I already had one for 1/4" tools, and the practical uses of these are somewhat unlimited. It's really dependent on how you grind your cutting tool down here, as far as what you want to do, what kind of slot you want it to make. This is a square end. I'm going to modify this some to about a 1.5 millimeter with a rounded nose for an upcoming project that will involve what I did a little sneak preview on in the last video of the motorized rotary table to make a gear cutter out of it. So stay tuned to the channel. Hope you enjoyed this build. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.